All right, it is SNL, and the Texans have left town. Well, some have. It was exit interview day. Myself, Cody Stoots, were on the scene. Shout out to all the subscribers. A few thousand deep in a very short time. Shout out to all the subscribers to the locker room, as well as Cody Stoots' channel and Houston football as well. The theme today for me, which I heard from multiple players, and be posting videos throughout the days of some of the exit interviews. The Derek Stingley's already up. If you want to check that out, he told me. I can say he told me if he actually told me, right?
That's a point of contention with me with media folks.
And I pull a James Palmer. But he said that he wants to be here forever. James Palmer will say it when it's at a press conference too, so it's kind of a slippery slope. But I asked him, contract. He said he'll let people handle that. David Mulligetta. And he said he wants to be here forever. But the theme that you heard a lot was we're close. Titus said it. Will Anderson said it. Really every player said that they felt that the Texans were close. We'll hear some of what DeMeco had to say, but I'm going to ask you, do you feel like the Texans are close to where they're talking about being?
No, I don't think that they're as close as they're intimating that they are. There's still a pretty sizable gap between them and the AFC elites, and how they eclipse that gap is primarily getting much better on offense. I mean, the defense is a Super Bowl caliber defense. The defense deserves to still be playing football here in the playoffs. They're not, in large part because the offense stunk to high heaven this year. And so when you look at how easily Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and even at times Patrick Mahomes can move the ball against really good defenses, and then you see how hard it is for the Houston Texans, and they've scored one touchdown in 2 divisional trips in 2 years under this regime, you got to see, it's an offensive league. It's a league built on scoring points, and they can't do it efficiently or easily, and that leaves them with a pretty sizable gap from where they want to go. Now, are they close because maybe they have some of those pieces and those pieces get better? Sure, but it's still a long way to go. They're just starting the journey to close that gap between them and the AFC elites based on the way that their offense plays.
So I don't think they're close at all. And I actually think they're closer to the Indianapolis Colts and that cluster beneath them than they are to the teams above them that we watched compete, specifically the one that advanced the Chiefs against them and the two that played yesterday, the Ravens and the Bills. And I want to make this very clear. A very good offseason can make you a lot closer. So it's not like I'm sitting here saying they're years away. It's just with the way that they function as an offense, with the way that they evaluate offensive players, before they have the coming to Jesus meeting that they're probably going to have this offseason, that frame of mind, you're going to fall off before you rise up with the way that they function on offense. Now, a few tweaks here, maybe some better players, all that, some natural progression, and I think you can elevate. But as we sit right now, I think there's a feel, and even talking to people who work with the organization and some people who may be upset that they lost, I think we kind of simplify it and we say they lost to the Chiefs by this many points. The refs gave them this many points, so they are 4 points worse than the Chiefs on that Saturday, but that's a lot of points for a team that can't put together drives in clutch situations when you need them. If your offense can't function in the right time and you don't have the players that can make plays in the right time, you can look at it as, oh man, 6 points, brother, you put together one good drive the entire game. And we went weeks, damn near a month, without you even scoring a touchdown in the second half for a number of reasons. So I don't think they're close right now. I think they're closer to the teams that didn't make the playoffs than the Ravens, Bills, and Chiefs in this type of situation. But I think that it's so clear what the problem is, and it's all in one side of the ball. And you have the quarterback, you have the wide receiver, you have at least one running back. You need to get multiples to work with. to where you can, if you invest your time and you make the appropriate decisions and you realize that there are a lot of flaws there, you can get rid of that pretty quick.
Yeah, look, the defense is still going to be the way that they operate and the way things carry for them. But at some point, defense runs out. I mean, yeah, on any given week, the defense can win you a game here or there. But there's going to be weeks where Will Levis walks into the building, lights you up. They have a bad day. The offense has to carry them. And the offense has a lot of catching up to do to the elites on the AFC side, because we can talk about the NFL. They got to get through the AFC situation before they even start worrying about what the NFC does. So like they've got to be good on offense compared to their AFC brethren before you even worry about, Eagles, Rams, or Commanders or any of that stuff. Like they're trying to go to an AFC championship game for the first time in franchise history next year, just like they have been anytime they've ever made the playoffs. And like that offense has got to get better. And I like some of the blocks that they've got. I believe Stroud can get better. It was not the leap that many of us expected. And I say this all the time. Nobody thinks their guy is going to get worse in the offseason when it comes to the quarterback. Certainly Texans fans didn't believe he was going to get worse, and there was a dip in some of his production. But Nico Collins solidifying that he is a guy you can trust. He's one of the 10, 15 best pass catchers in football. Like that was a big deal for this team. Joe Mixon, he needs some help behind him. They've got to go address that and get that. And then they got to fix the 5 guys up front from an offensive line standpoint. It's like I listed off a lot, but they've got some nice pieces that maybe some other teams that are trying to make that leap don't necessarily have.
Danny says, and I think this pretty much says what we've said the whole time, like they can only win one way.
Yeah.
And in the playoffs, you need to be able to win one way. Like you need to be able multiple ways. And I think that's the best way of putting everything we just said.
I mean, I remember I want to say it was around the Colts game or so in the middle of the season, or maybe a little bit before that. We had a big conversation about, there's 2 ways they win the game. The defense dominates, or Joe Mixon has a big day with a little help from the defense. And then it really turned into actually the defense just has to be as close to a shutout as possible, and the offense will use bubble gum and tape and Gorilla Glue and Fix-A-Dent and everything else to kind of cobble together a couple of points for you. That's what it ultimately became.
Yes, that's pretty much what it is. Zach says, shout out to the GOATs SNL. Texans need an offensive rebuild across the board with few exceptions, Stroud, Mixon, and Nico. And I think you need to proactively look at Mixon too. I think that I think you got to anticipate some sort of wear and tear next year. We saw him kind of get beat up this year. We know that running backs, if you ask them to do too much, I think if you're setting yourself up to where you're asking Joe Mixon to do exactly what he did this year, I think you're kind of setting yourself up for disaster. And I don't know. They can't even do the fundamental things at this point before the coming to Jesus meeting. I don't know that they're going to be able to anticipate such a thing. But you did ask DeMeco Ryans about some things, and I'm interested to hear what DeMeco had to say. He pushed his media availability back 2 hours, so I was like, I'm not sitting around for 2 hours for that. I had other stuff going. So let's hear from DeMeco.
Well, he was asked to sort of assess where the offense was this year, and it wasn't good enough for the head coach.
Offensively, we have to improve. It wasn't where we wanted to be. There were challenges throughout the year, just like that's every year. You have challenges, you have ups and downs, where you try to figure out the course of who you have and how to make it work. But we have to improve.
And some of those were self-inflicted challenges. They built a really bad offensive line. That wasn't good.
What did he say about Shaq Mason is really what I want to hear about.
Okay.
With Shaq Mason. What did he say about Shaq?
I asked about Shaq Mason, why make the switch from Juice Scruggs at right guard to Shaq Mason. This was DeMeco Ryans' answer.
A really good week of practice. Shaq has been working a while to get back with us, get back out there, and thought he had a really good week. And the overall, it was good. It wasn't good from collectively of how we protect it, but it's not just one person.
Okay.
All right, so Shaq got the DeMeco shield. I mean, I just, that's one of those self-inflicted wounds. They waited too long to make a change at left guard with Kenyon Green. That probably cost them some ability to get things going. They waited too long to change some things around on the offensive line. Probably could have got Blake Fisher in there earlier and had him starting games and getting a little bit more experience ahead of time when you knew you had a chance to take care of business in the division and then play some playoff games. Like Bobby Slowik's stubbornness on some of the ways that he operates as an offensive coordinator. Like there were a lot of self-inflicted issues in addition to, Tank Dell, breaks his leg, Stefon Diggs, he tears his ACL. And again, those things don't solve everything. Like Tank Dell is on the field Saturday night. They're not beating the Kansas City Chiefs. I would say the same thing with Stefon Diggs. It makes it a little bit better, but they still had issues when those guys were healthy that they were not having a good time putting it together, making it look like a competent offense. And that's really the story of this season is the offense disappointed. The defense took a step. The offense didn't. And the defense had to make up for the offense all year long.
Yeah, that was the story. And they just need as many impact guys on offense as possible. I don't think you look to one area. Like they need as many impact guys, like whoever makes the biggest impact on your board, even if it's you draft multiple receivers or you're drafting a receiver and a running back, and then you're sprinkling in some offensive linemen or a tight ends there. They need as many playmakers on offense as possible and impact guys. Period, point blank, end of story. We did hear Titus Howard talking about the guard and tackle thing. He sounds like he's ready to play guard. Last year it was, opened. I'm just a tackle. I think that was kind of like him taking like a Twitter narrative and kind of running with it. But I think it's safe to say that Titus Howard is going to be a guard from here on out, assuming he's on the team.
Here's what Titus had to say when I asked him, are you preparing to be a right tackle this offseason?
Excited. It's I'm a ball wherever I be at, So whether it's right tackle, left guard, my goal is to be the best player I can be wherever I'm at on the field. So this offseason I'm gonna train. I'm gonna get better. I want next year to be an even better season than it was for me this year. I want to play more games. I missed one game this year. I want to be able to play all the games next year. So my goal is to attack this offseason and try to make myself, a better version of myself than I were this year, next year, so I can help the team win more games.
I mean, look, the fact that he didn't come out and say,
no matter where,
the fact that, he has to say that, but the fact that he didn't come out and say, yeah, I'm going to play right tackle next year, it lets me know that Titus Howard's either not on this team or Titus Howard's the starting left guard for the team. So that's what it feels like to me based off of his comments. And we talked about this when he first moved to left guard. This was sort of a potential solution to the various questions that you had about the offensive line, which was who's going to be the left guard, who's going to be the right guard in 2025. Well, if Titus played well enough at left guard, then perhaps you could put him at left guard, and there's your initial answer at left guard, and hopefully a season-long answer at left guard, though I don't know that everybody has a lot of confidence that would be a season-long answer. But as much as people want to just, hey, play Madden and get rid of this guy, like there's a limit to what they can do from a getting rid of guys standpoint. Like you can't just everybody that you think stinks. You can't just get rid of everybody like that. There's a financial commitment to some of this.
I'm sorry. Like if you make a poor purchase and that purchase ends up being much less than you anticipated it being just because it was a bad item, then you just charge it to the game. Same thing with the salary cap. I want Titus Howard to be the most expensive reserve offensive lineman in football. I want him to be the backup guard / tackle. That's what I want Titus Howard to be. I want to find someone off the street. I want to find someone in the draft. I do not care. I want them to be in there, and Titus Howard can be a swing guard or tackle, and we can figure that out and adjust accordingly. It doesn't work. it's not, maybe it's not working. And the other thing about Titus that nobody really talks about, I don't know how much he's really like putting in if, for copying Laramie Tunsil. It doesn't seem like they're on like the same diet plan, like or like the same type of the same type of thing. Same thing with Shaq Mason. If we're being honest, like I don't know that it kind of feels like the Pattersons, the Scruggs, the Tunsils, like it kind of feels like they're doing one type of workout and the Shaq Masons and Titus Howards are doing a different type of workout. I'm sorry. It does.
Yeah, they're not as physically impressive as Laramie Tunsil. Hard to get to that level, but they're not anywhere close. Patterson came back this year. He looked better than last year. Scruggs came back this year. He looked stronger.
Titus looks worse.
Yeah,
Titus looks worse. He looked like, and this is not, it's not disrespectful to say this because we say it. If Brevin Jordan comes back in year 1 to year 2 and it's like, oh, he looks different and he acknowledges, yes, I look different, then that's a storyline. When I ask Henry Toto, what's the biggest difference from this year to last year? And he straight up says with a straight face, I was a fat ass last year. So I decided I was going to come back in shape. That's the thing. Titus Howard and Shaq Mason came in worse shape this year, based on my eyes, than last year. Are definitely not better. Sorry.
Yeah, the thing about it is your wish may be that he's a backup. That's not going to happen. He's either off the team or he's the starting left guard. So, I mean, that's what they're going to do. And then it's going to be Scruggs and Patterson competing with each other for the starting center spot, and they'll hopefully have a new right guard in the building when they get rid of Shaq Mason. Although 2 days of practice made him seem like he was a friggin' all-pro, so, maybe he does one workout in the offseason, and they're like, well, actually, we should probably keep this guy.
So DeMeco's saying that essentially that
2 days of practice.
They were watching Shaq Mason close to see how he practiced, and like if he looked good in practice, we're going to go with him.
Right. The same 2 practices that Juice Scruggs also practiced in, the exact same amount, and Scruggs had no injury designation when the game or when the injury designations came out, just like Mason did.
Yeah. And I just like I would like to see Titus Howard, and if Shaq Mason's here, I don't think he is. Like I would like to see a body transformation like we saw from Kenyon Green. Say what you want about him. He did everything. Like the stuff he could control. A
lot of good did him.
So he at least controlled what he could control.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
Sorry. Let's hear about,
damn it, Bobby,
the most polarizing story of the season, Bobby Slowik. Here's DeMeco Ryans talking about Bobby.
Overall, with Bobby, I saw some growth, saw some improvement throughout the year.
That was it. So if job security was determined by the amount of words your boss talked about you, Bobby needs to pack a cardboard box and get the hell out of there.
Oh, so you're thinking Bobby could be fired now?
I absolutely think it's on the table. Absolutely. I mean, growth and improvement, okay, that's fine. Like, we just talked about a season-long offensive issue. And yes, you can point to this challenge or that challenge, and maybe you can blame, okay, we built an offensive line that he couldn't operate with, but you go watch and listen to any sort of ex-football mind, and then you start to see it as well. Like, you got wide receivers, former quarterbacks, former offensive guys being like, this scheme sucks. Why is everybody in the same place? Like, why did they do that? The blocking scheme's awful. Like, yes, some of the stuff is player driven. Like, the offensive line didn't play really well. But, like, the blocking scheme with whoever the linemen were in there was bad. Like, they have bad rules that lead to bad results. Like, the wide receivers run into each other sometimes. The wide receivers all run to the same spot. The timing of when you need big plays or big moments or big elements from the offense is off. The inconsistency of when they're going to go foot on the gas or when they're going to go a little bit slower. Like, there's so many things wrong with Bobby Slowik, and you could swap that out, change things a bunch of different ways on the offense with a new offensive coordinator, and then all of a sudden you're talking about playing that catch up with the rest of the AFC because the offense got better.
Well, I mean, and you brought up the good point that in their time in the tier that they're in or around there, both Baltimore and Buffalo at some point, maybe different time frame, they've had to change OCs. And when they changed their OCs, I know like you can look at the time and say, well, the time was it was a little bit longer and the OCs were it was when their offenses looked like this. Like it was the point where that happened was when their offenses looked like this. And quite frankly, I don't think their offenses ever like got this bad. Like injuries are 0.00000 of an excuse for me when it comes to this offense and just the way it functioned. There's no, I don't buy that because I saw it when it was at full strength and it didn't function like a good offense. So I would say that like you're looking at all these teams and you bring up the good point of they made the change. They made the change when the offense looked like this.
Yeah, when Lamar took a step back overall from his production standpoint, they fired the guy that had been there for a while and had coached him to much better results than what Slowik coached CJ Stroud to last year. And they brought in a new guy, and guess what happened? Lamar won 2 MVPs, and they're maybe their tight end catching an extra point away from finding themselves an AFC championship game, or catching a 2-point conversion away from being an AFC championship game. But the offense looks better. That's for damn sure. You don't have any questions about can Baltimore operate on offense. You don't have any questions about can Buffalo operate on offense since they made those changes.
Yeah, that's the real. That's the quarterback. We got to see if the quarterback gets up to that tier as well. That's kind of another thing.
And I don't know that an 8-word answer or whatever it is lends itself one way or the other to, is this guy going to fire the offensive coordinator, or is this guy going to keep the offensive coordinator? I do think, though, if you did feel like there was some growth offensively, or you did see some improvement, you'd maybe have a few more things that you wanted to talk about and say. And like they talk about, hey, these last couple of weeks of practice, and another element of any of the positive from offense, like they've got to go and assess how much of that was CJ Stroud making something happen versus CJ Stroud operated within what Bobby Slowik put in the headset. So I think that's another element that needs to be considered too. Like they have a little pop of offense here in the final drive against Tennessee and the playoff game against the Chargers and a little bit there in Kansas City. And it's like, how much of that's just CJ figuring it out as the play goes on versus, hey, Bobby called a really good play. I think there's a lot more CJ than we would think.
Yep.
It's pathetic that we're talking about like a pop of offense. Like they scored 12 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. They did worse than they did a month ago. Like
no,
they were awful against the Chargers.
It was one good drive, and then they just completely, like, even when they got something going, whenever you actually had to think and you had to figure out what to do, whether it be before the 2-minute warning, right before the 2-minute warning of both halves, when you're going to go for it on 4th down, when it's 4-down territory, like they just completely hit a roadblock there.
I mean, it's not like they like lit the world up against the Chargers either. Like I know they had a little bit of success, and it was like drinking a water bottle after you've been in the desert for a while. It's not like that was some grade A offense. Like I just don't like. You handed Bobby Slowik the keys to the offense. He had all this time to game plan for what defenses were going to do to him and CJ Stroud and get counter punches ready for how they're going to approach him. And you gave him more to work with than the previous year. And you got this. I just don't know how you say, well, you know what? The guy that messed that up, we're going to let him do it again. And we're going to let him continue to work. Like if a mechanic screws up your transmission, you don't go back to that mechanic when your transmission messes up.
I see my thing on this is And we'll get to the soup in a second. My thing on this is I think there's natural growing pains that you can overlook. And I think there's natural gray area that you can overlook. Like if I truly believed it was all injuries, and like last year, if you told me, well, they really missed Tank Dell, I believed you. Because I saw like a good offense with Tank Dell. You know? Like they missed Tank Dell, I believed you. He wasn't close to the same guy this year, and you weren't gelling the whole time. And I think that a lot of the stuff that they dealt with this year, I don't know if it's a growing pain to not have the message clear to your quarterback that, hey, it's before the 2-minute warning. We got to do this. Or the tempo has got to be this. Or at the end of the Green Bay game, hey, we're going to run the ball twice and then we're going to throw it short of the sticks. Like it doesn't, it just seems, and I know it's easy for jamokes like us to say, but you'll never hear me say like, well, he should have ran here. That's like one of my pet peeves. Well, Joe Mixon should have cut there when he had this. I can't relate to that. I can't do that. So I can't like say, well, I can say, well, maybe he should have caught the ball. That's more simplistic, but I respect like what the athlete does. And I understand it's like a one-of-one thing. So you can say he's not good or he's not playing based on what his players are like, but like specifics, I don't know. Outside of like a chip for Dalton Schultz, because that's just, hey, maybe lift your arm up. I don't know. But like not knowing some of the stuff Bobby Slowik knows, I just don't like if you have to learn some of the basic things like that, maybe you just lucked out last year. Like maybe it was just like a one-off luck thing. Because there's not anything that I can like say to justify the Green Bay thing. Like there's nothing I can say to that. That's just that's high school peewee type of stuff at the end of Green Bay. The Kansas City, that's peewee stuff as well. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like natural growing pains with Bobby Slowik with what's going on.
Exactly. And again, you can't hand this guy like this is not there's a clock on this. Like there's a finite amount of time that you have with these players at this level of their financial commitment to them. And you've got to maximize your opportunities and be successful with that. And then you have to have faith that when you make a financial commitment to the quarterback, that you've been able to draw out. Like you can't be betting on potential when you hand the guy one of the biggest contracts in the NFL. Like you got to know. Well, you got to have a coach that can draw that out. Like you need to find out. Like you need to draw. You need to have somebody that can coach out some of the issues that CJ Stroud has had. Like he took a step back as a quarterback. He was less confident. He was less accurate. And he was less effective. That's a bad job.
Big thing, the confidence thing, and he was openly. I want to ask you a question to kind of add to this, and I want to bring DeMeco Ryans into the mix in a sec. First, let's go to the super chat. Michael says Bobby was a one-year wonder, aka Vanilla Ice. Time to get CJ some coaching. Although it's unfair to say Vanilla Ice because that Go Ninja Go was pretty sick. Ninja Turtles, so he's not even Vanilla Ice. Zach Rose says DeMeco needs to quit being so soft, man. It's frustrating. No accountability whatsoever.
Look, he's never going to go to the podium and outright rip a guy. You know, even today when he was asked about Chris Boyd, he explained, well, Chris got a little excited and, you know, we can't get that penalty. And looked like he thought he'd made the play and he was celebrating with Frank Ross. Like he's not going to go rip him.
Yeah.
Okay. But I also like, when the defense, when he goes to the podium and we're sitting there watching a game where the offense couldn't get it going, and he says,
wasn't good enough.
The defense wasn't good enough. Like, I actually believe that he goes in there and he's like, hey, guys, you weren't good enough. But, like,
and
I don't know that he goes in there and is like, Shaq, why didn't you block somebody? Dalton, why didn't you touch anybody?
The Tennessee game was the best example because he said our defense wasn't good enough, and it was like they were fine. Like they had one lapse. He sounded like a defensive coach. But this is what I want to ask you, and we don't know this. This is like speculation. But whenever an offensive decision needs to be made, because we both agree that the the in-game process and the whole in-game functionality is just piss poor, junior high. Like every football game you watch outside of the Texans, like you're jealous of how they function. Even if it's like a MAC game on Thursday, they seem to know what the hell's going on early on, regardless of the reason. Like we agree on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
My question is, like when the decision, like, hey, Kenyon Green doesn't need to be benched. He's going to go back in there. And Shaq Mason, he sucked. But you know what? We're going to put him back in there. When that decision gets made, just guessing, and these are somewhat educated guesses, but we don't really know. What do you think the process is? Like, do you think the process is Bobby Slowik says, I want Shaq to start, and DeMeco says, okay, whatever, Bobby? Do you think it's a situation where Bobby wants to keep it that way, and then DeMeco says, no, let's start Shaq? Do they both just like what do you think the process to getting to something that looks that incompetent is? Like, what do you think the process is? That's a question I have.
My thought is, and I don't know, but my thought
We don't know. Neither of us know.
My thought is that Bobby probably submits, this is how we're going to approach things. These are the guys that we're going to approach them with. And then DeMeco gives the sign off and says, yeah, you're on the right track, or no, you're not on the right track. I mean, the head coach gets updated on the injuries every day. The head coach gets an understanding of where guys are from an injury standpoint every time. And if Juice was hurt somewhat, I'd understand it. Well, we started the healthy guy. But Juice wasn't hurt, and he'd been playing for 2 weeks, and it wasn't bad. The offensive line performance wasn't bad with Juice at right guard, and they've swapped one guy in there. And yeah, the defense they went against was pretty tough. They swapped one guy in there. They gave 5 more sacks than they did the previous week with making one offensive lineman change. Like, so I believe Bobby lays it out, and then if DeMeco wants a change or needs a change, he makes that recommendation.
Yeah, I just don't know how you get to that. Like that's really for me. Like is DeMeco, because here's the problem I have with the offense and the defense, and I've talked about this. Like we had the person on the super chat earlier say, I think it was James. Shout out to James. DeMeco's soft, and he's basing that off of how he talks about the offensive side of the ball, right? And how Shaq Mason goes back in and Kenyon Green's playing like crap, but he says, he's not playing that bad. Jalen Petrie got benched last year.
Mm-hmm.
And he was not, he wasn't playing great, but it wasn't any worse than what Shaq Mason or Kenyon Green have done. Wasn't any worse than that. So, and he's their favorite, rightfully so. Like he's like their favorite guy. So why it's kind of troubling, and it goes back to like the defensive minded coach thing. He's not soft because he calls out the defense even when they probably did enough to win, and he's willing to bench guys on defense that he loves more than anyone. Like he loves Jalen Petrie more than Shaq and Kenyon Green.
Mm-hmm. Like
Jalen's their guy, but he benched him. So what? Like that's confusing to me. It's either someone else is making those calls with a different mindset, or he's making the final say, but he just doesn't have as good of a grasp of or as much confidence in the offense as he does the defense. That's the problem that I have with the decision-making that they have on offense and defense and the difference in the two.
They've had one non-injury benching on offense in DeMeco Ryans' time. Do you know who it is?
Say it again.
They've had one non-injury, change, benching, so to speak, in DeMeco Ryans' time. It occurred this season.
It was Kenyon Green for like 10 seconds before Patterson got hurt.
But then he went right back in the game. So
he went back and then they left him in. Yeah.
And then he started the next week.
Yeah.
The one guy that got benched when it was like there was an injury, it was his turn. He was the guy. He'd been the guy. And then they inexplicably benched him and started somebody else in his spot was when Daria Gumbawale started in place of Cam Akers. And it's like, what are we doing? Like, that wasn't a performance thing. What's going on here? Well, Cam didn't have a good week of practice. Like, they didn't bench Kenyon Green for good. And it was an injury that benched him, and he never got his spot back.
Damian Pierce got benched as an example for Singletary. And that took forever, too.
Yeah.
That took forever. I guess that's another good one, too. Yeah, Damian did. Singletary kind of took that, too.
That one worked, actually, but it took too long. So I don't understand and maybe there's, I don't know. We make fun of it, but it seems to be a real thing. Like the investment they have in these guys seems to keep getting them opportunities. If Kenyon Green was a 7th round pick, they would have benched him sooner, but he was a 1st round pick. If Shaq Mason didn't make $16 million, he probably gets benched. But they have this investment in these guys, and it's almost like the sunk cost fallacy of like, well, we've already invested this much. We got to keep going this way. It's like, you don't. You've got options. Like there was and by the way, the guy that would have played instead of Mason is another big investment. He's a 2nd round pick. It's Juice Scruggs.
Yeah, it's interesting for sure. On the chat, Keener713. Can we all admit we don't have nearly enough information to be making most of these decisions for the organization? Do changes need to be made? Absolutely. Yes. Do I know what those are exactly? Nope. I don't know. Like what information do you need to know if someone needs to be benched, replaced, offensive coordinator? This is a I read the book guy. This is a you should read the book type of guy that might not even read. This is a guy who goes to McDonald's and tells people that the food's fat. Like, what information do you need to say whether someone's benched or not? We're there every day, though. We follow like everything, but like, what does that mean? That is like fake nuance right there. What does that even mean?
Here's the thing. I watch the offense all year long. I know they need to make changes in the offensive coaching room.
Do we know?
With the offensive line.
Do we know what they're going to do? We don't know. Why don't you coach the team? He said, why don't you coach the team? Why don't you coach the team? Why don't you go coach the team if it's so easy?
Well, did you happen to watch the end of the press conference today? Did you happen to watch the end of the press conference today, Landry?
I did not.
Boy, you'd have made fun of me because you always make fun of me, but you'd have made fun of me. I had more false starts on my question starting than Laramie Tunsil had this season.
Yeah.
I got beat to the punch probably 12 times before I finally got to my question.
You soft, bro.
And my question to DeMeco Ryans was a question that I asked Bill O'Brien one time. And I asked Bill O'Brien, I said, when you go assess yourself as a head coach, who do you lean on to give you that assessment? And his answer was Mike Devlin. So we all know how that was going to go. Ultimately, Bill O'Brien did spend a lot of time with Dick Vermeil in the off seasons going over his head coaching and things like that. But I asked DeMeco, I said, outside of your assessment of your own, your own assessment of your performance, is there somebody that you lean on or go to for the assessment of your season? And he kind of looked around, he laughed. He's like, I go to Cody. And I was like, okay, well, I'll get the assessment to you, coach.
I'd say the assessment is he's going through what most head coaches go through, and he's doing a good job. It's just he needs to. He's got a really elite skill set, and he's got a hell of a lot of potential to be really, 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 really great. Don't know that the start could be much better than it is, but this is kind of a not necessarily a breaking point, but this is like a challenge for him to fix this offense however he sees fit.
Well, it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to tap into his understanding of where they are and his understanding of where they need to be. I mean, I liked the comment today where he said, yeah, I'm not here to coach us to where we got this past weekend. Like, I'm here to coach us to much further past that. Like, he's clearly not thrilled that they're not playing football still.
And I did think today he was a little bit more direct with the offense than he was in season. Like, even like saying that they need to be better and stuff.
Like, I also think too, like, as much as we can't let a couple of weeks here at the end of the season sort of save Bobby, you also can't let a couple of weeks here you have to look at the total picture of the season, which I feel like is one of the reasons he said, hey, we're going to take this week to work out the staff and things like that. I get that. And that sort of heads off the, hey, are you firing the O-line coach question? That sort of heads that off. But like, when you look at the whole season, standing pat's not an option from a coaching staff standpoint. Like, there's some significant changes that need to be made. And even if he has some level of belief in his offensive coordinator sticking around, you got to make changes elsewhere to make his life easier and to help him get better too.
Suduk says, I hope DeMeco knows he needs to work on time management and game feel. I don't know that I have any like intense time management beefs with DeMeco yet. I don't think I would list that as one of his weaknesses. Game feel.
Your end of half beef is not necessarily the management of the time. It's the decision on, are they going or are they not going?
Yeah, I think it's more the fun. Well, I don't know I think that's an offensive thing.
Right. But if he says, go get a touchdown, the coach calls it to go get a touchdown.
Right. Yeah. So maybe the message is there. I don't know. Like I kind of,
hey, Bobby, we need 7 here. Okay, coach, I'll do my best. Like there were times where it was like they just kind of let a couple of plays dictate how they were going to operate.
Yeah, that's fair. I guess like I don't like I try not to be a simp. I'm kind of a simp naturally, like in a lot of ways, but like when it comes to evaluating the coaches and the teams we cover, I try not to be simplistic. Like, you could say, like, you could try, like, there's some people who would like blame DeMeco or the defense for Kelsey getting open. I like Aziz was where he was supposed to be. Like he just didn't, like, that was more of an Aziz thing than anything. And it was also, here was another thing that I think is kind of under the radar. And it's kind of unfair because the defense, we're talking about the damn defense as if they didn't do enough to win. But that's really like when we talked about the most significant injury, I think not having a nickel hurt them against Kelsey too. And I think that's something Buffalo's not going to struggle with because they have one of the better nickels in the league. So I think that, like, if Jimmy and Petrie are playing, I think I don't know that Kelsey stuff happens. I just think because of how stuff was, you kind of had to have Aziz in that situation and where Harris is. But I'm saying all that to say, I don't think DeMeco showcases a lack of time management or a lack of feel just based on what I see. And I don't know that the offense, like, I don't expect DeMeco to ever like oversee the offense. It's just, you got to trust the right guys. Like, Dan Quinn's not sitting there over Cliff Kingsbury's shoulder. Like, if that's a DeMeco problem and DeMeco needs to be the one to tell you, hey, we need to score before the 2-minute warning and we have 2 timeouts, so let's hurry the F up. If DeMeco ever has to be that guy, he's not hiring the right offensive coordinator. Like, that will not, like, you will not have to tell. I promise you. It might be told, but I don't know that Bobby is enough of like a hard ass to just be I don't know that Bobby is enough of like a hard ass to just like firmly have something in control of his. Like, I don't feel like he can I don't feel like he has the personality to really, really just be in charge of half the ball and go get it done. And that is body language shit. And you can call that like Mickey Mouse, but like, let's look at the guys that are being trusted, like with defensive coaches, like defensive coaches that need someone to go out there and like take control of the offense. Bobby Slowik just doesn't really have that personality. He doesn't have that feel. He doesn't have that presence.
Well, and that's part of the reason why I say it's up to DeMeco Ryans to decide when's the gas pedal going to the floor and when are they kind of easing into the half. Like, I read a story over the weekend. Mike McDonald, the head coach in Seattle, defensive-minded guy, first-year offensive coordinator this year. They fired him at the end of the year. And one of the stories from they fired the OC after 1 year was McDonald told the OC, we need points on this drive. Like, let's make sure we get some points. Let's, when we get into field goal range, let's make sure we're able to kick the football. They got right on the edge of field goal range. Offensive coordinator called a pass on third down. Geno Smith got sacked. They're out of field goal range. Mike McDonald was furious. It's like, hey, we needed points. You specifically called plays that kept us from getting points. Like, and that sort of added to the, discontent with that guy. I do wonder how many times DeMeco has said, hey, let's get this. And then Bobby's issues kept them from getting that. And how much does that stick with him?
Yeah.
Like, does he just see it as a shortcoming of the team, or does he see it as a shortcoming of the guy with the headset?
Like, if you have a really badass, like, guy on half the ball, like if you have a real badass, like say he's an offensive or defensive guy, he needs to either be a really smart motherfucker, or he needs to be a really, really, really like alpha dude that is like in firm control and can control things and get things done on that end. Assuming that DeMeco doesn't want to dive in offense. I don't think he does. Like, I think he'll have success. I think DeMeco wants to worry about his defense, have like moderate say in his offense, and be able to trust the right guy to get it done. Like, that's what I think DeMeco needs. Like, let me ask you this. Let's say that I'm Bobby Slowik. Okay. I'm Bobby Slowik. Okay. How we doing, guys? Like, and we're in our team meeting. Like, let's say that I say, I really like the way this offensive line is going, and they're doing a really good job. And he believes that like wholeheartedly. He believes that wholeheartedly. If DeMeco still wants to start Shaq Mason and he says Shaq Mason, what do you think Bobby Slowik's going to say? Okay, well, we'll go with Shaq. All right, yeah, really Shaq too. Like, you look at the film, it could be better. What do you think Cliff Kingsbury's saying if Dan Quinn says that? Fuck you.
Get the hell out of my room.
He's saying no. I'm telling you right now, we got this going right now. We're going to need to pass protect. Like, the run blocking's not that much of off. Like, no, that's not how it's going down. Like, I don't think that Bobby is, if he's going to be fully in charge of that much of an offense, I think he's a film nerd that knows that knows how to watch film. I think he's probably a great resource for a coach, but he does not. This is body language again, and what we actually see. He does not look like an offensive guy that you just fully trust to call the offense. Ben Johnson over there, when he's looking at a play sheet, man, it looks like the sumbitch is studying for his finals. Like, he's in control. It's like, stay away from me, like all that type of stuff. Cliff Kingsbury, he's in the bag. Like, he's in the bag. Like, they're in the bag. Bobby Slowik's just sitting there, man.
I think there's a presence that Bobby Slowik doesn't possess, that you look at the remaining play callers in this league that are still playing for a championship. Kingsbury has a presence to go along with a lot of experience. Andy Reid has a presence, obviously a lot of experience. Joe Brady, he's got a presence to him. Like, and he has to deal with a head coach that's an idiot. Like, Sean McDermott has put them in terrible positions. And then Kellen Moore. Like, I don't know that Kellen Moore's got like a presence that's like, oh man, look at that badass, but he's a nerd and he played quarterback. Like, so, you look at the guys that call the plays that are still around, and they've all got some sort of defined presence about them.
It sounds like I don't think he needs experience. Like, I don't think he needs experience. I just don't know. I just don't know that I'm not saying Bobby Slowik doesn't like belong in football. I'm just saying, like, I don't there's some coaches, there's different layers to it. There's some coaches who are good coordinators that shouldn't be head coaches. Okay. There are some special teams coordinators that are lifetime special teams coordinators that will never be defensive coordinators or head coaches. There's some position coaches that don't need to be coordinators. I think Bobby Slowik's layer is below offensive coordinator just based on the way he handles himself and the way that this thing goes. And that's not based on experience or anything. Like, I don't care about, well, he had to have been a head coach or anything. I just don't like it. Doesn't for something that important when the other coach, I don't want to say DeMeco has an offensive blind spot, but he might have an offensive. Let's be honest. He's been a linebacker his full focus has been the defensive side of the ball for 4 decades, 3 decades, however long he is. Like from the beginning of his football life, he was the linebacker. He was the captain and the leader. So he was like the face of the defense. He did that all the way through. He did it all the way to San Francisco. So I'm not saying it's a blind spot. I'm just saying that's kind of his level of expertise. That's kind of the way that he leans. So if you're going to have someone that leans that way, I don't think you need an offensive coach. Like there's some people say, well, that's why you need an offensive coach. No, you just need to trust the right guy, and you can't over-trust someone like Bobby Slowik.
I also wonder, too, how much of DeMeco Ryans' success calling defense is just it's a God-given thing that he possesses, and it was good for him. Like, you hear the guys tell the story. He shows up first couple of days of training camp as a rookie. Everyone's like, okay, yeah, this guy's good. This guy's got it. Like, he's going to get it. Like, they're going to, he's going to be a guy that makes a difference. The way that they talk about him in Philly when he was there as he was a little bit older. And then he's clearly a prodigy. Like he's climbed his way through the coaching ranks in a very quick manner. Like no. I also wonder if some of his hope is like, well, maybe Bobby's inherently got that juice that I have, like got that God-given ability that I have.
I just think when we talk about coaches, that there's like a natural, and it's almost unfair. And this is where you kind of like start to like the human side of coaches, you start to kind of feel it where you almost look at it as this guy can't be a head coach. He sucks. Or, wow, that guy's a position coach. He's not a coordinator. He sucks. We don't do that in anything else. Like, because in most businesses, there's a CEO, there's managers, there's sales staff, there's like all kinds of different layers. And if you're good at that, you're good at that. And if you're not an offensive coordinator, that doesn't mean that Bobby Slowik's just some dumbass who doesn't belong in the NFL. I think there's value. Like Bobby Slowik to me is like a guy who's like an offensive quality control guy, where if he sees something on tape and he can tell you what's going on and chime in, that's fine. I don't think he's built to call plays. I don't think he's built to call plays, and that doesn't make him like some sort of failure, but it's a lot of pressure, and it's kind of like an overseeing like type of thing. And I just don't know what like the development looks like. Like last year, Jalen Petrie, like we knew, like we were having similar-ish conversations with Jalen Petrie, and we were sitting here and we were saying, and I said this leading up to the draft, I was like, man, they need a safety. Like they really, really need a safety, and they need a starting safety. And some people are like, you can't give up on Jalen Petrie after 2 years. It's like, no, I'm not giving up on Jalen Petrie after 2 years. I think he's a good football player. I didn't know what his role was going to be, and I didn't know he was going to be as good at it. But that role, that is not his role. He's a nickelback. Some people will say, well, that's kind of like a drop-off. No, it's not. It's valuable. Jalen Petrie has a chance to be a Houston Texan for like 10, 11 years in that role. And it's not any sort of an indictment. But we knew last year, like we saw it. But Bobby Slowik right now, he's not an offensive coordinator. He's just not. Like they don't function like that. He doesn't sound like that. He doesn't have the grasp of it. It's not a knock on Bobby Slowik. He's just not, man. And I think I'm just now seeing the light here where it's just so blatantly obvious. And there's nothing wrong with changing offensive coordinators. That's the other thing. You don't want multiple offensive coordinators for the quarterback. Who gives a rat's ass? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
You know what's funny? Like a lot of those guys that had issues because there was like, oh, like this guy had multiple OCs like early. A lot of those guys sucked. Like, you know who had multiple OCs in the same season last year? Josh Allen. Like, You know, Lamar changed those season, won 2 MVPs. And like that, and I know people are saying, well, Cody, that's the Bills, that's the Ravens. That's where you want to go. I'm not holding you to the Raiders standard. I'm not holding you to the Jaguars standard. Oh, well,
Yeah.
they don't want to change out Trevor's offense again. Trevor's not very good. Like, you probably need to find an offense that fits him. Trevor Lawrence is not very good.
And that's the other thing is you're like Kyle Shanahan has changed the defensive coordinator the last few years, you know? Like since DeMeco left, like he's changed it the last few years. Like sometimes it just happens like that. You got to trust the right guy, and you can't overtrust.
And
that's where you start to get in trouble.
Because he's not afraid to be one and done with those guys either.
Sometimes you got to take the proactive approach and just do what your eyes are telling you. And like in some instances, like if we knew that Kenyon Green was not going to be a starting guard, I can understand like the first round pick and all that, and you want to figure it out. Okay. But to me, to bring it back to the Petrie thing and bring it back full circle, I think bringing back Bobby Slowik is almost like keeping Petrie at if they would just kept him at starting safety last year and ignored Kalen Bullock and done that. Like that's kind of how I look at it. Like I want to like be able to fill the glass up halfway and tell you, well, you know, maybe if they got more healthy or, you know, he's a young offensive coordinator. I don't buy that. And I don't have like a specific, like when it comes to coaches, I don't have a specific like experience level or body of work that you have to have or anything like that. I just don't look at the I don't look at Bobby Slowik and say that's an OC.
Well, the time
I'm finally accepting this.
The time to strike is now too. Like if the Houston Texans offensive coordinator job pops open, that's a really good offensive coordinator job. Like the one offensive coordinator job that's actually made a hire so far is the Browns. And they promoted a guy from passing game specialist to their offensive coordinators, Tommy Rees. And like, look, Detroit's a great job right now. You want to go be the offensive coordinator in Detroit because Ben Johnson left? Be my guest. Go for it. That's a great job. But you look at these offensive coordinator opportunities, you want to coordinate CJ Stroud, Nico Collins, Joe Mixon, or you want to go coordinate Geno Smith? Okay? Like, I think the answer is pretty obvious there. You want to go be the offensive coordinator and not actually call the plays in San Fran? Or you want to call the plays and be the top offensive mind in the building in Houston? Like, you've got an opportunity to strike while the iron is hot. Like, it's not like you're hiring from the bottom of the candidate list. Like, you can go out there and get damn near anybody you want if this job is open. The job's maybe not open, though, unfortunately, because they might be committed to Bobby Slowik, and I feel like that would be a mistake. Now, there's going to be a hot name next year. There will be offensive minds next year, and we may be sitting here January 20th, 2026, talking about, wow, they kind of wasted a year of offense. Defense, yet again, they blew another great year of defense with the offense not being able to get it done. That would be a great failure for this franchise. Like, it would be a great failure for this franchise if we're sitting here a year from now, they wasted a year of offense.
Well, and I also think there's one of the most dangerous things that you can do in the NFL. I think we see it with the Raiders. We saw it with the Texans for a while. Is try to copy what works and try to duplicate that just because there's like one like string of success. And I think the Slowik fascination, I think it was kind of tied to Mike McDaniel doing what he did early in Miami. And it was like, well, he didn't call plays for Shanahan. So naturally you're like, well, who's the next guy that didn't call plays for Shanahan? Maybe he's going to be ready to go. And then there's like the good first year and people kind of overreact to that. And I think I think there's kind of something to that too, where just because Mike McDaniel did it early on doesn't mean that Bobby Slowik's ready to do it.
When you pick the third or fourth or fifth guy as well, because if Kyle Shanahan had to turn over play calling duties, he probably turns it over to Mike McDaniel. Well, you can't hire him. If he didn't turn it over to Mike McDaniel, he probably would have turned it over to Mike LaFleur. Well, you couldn't hire him. So it's like there were not only did you have a fascination with the idea of the guy, but you also picked the third or fourth guy from that situation.
Do you wonder if CJ Stroud is built for this system? Like, does that ever cross your mind? Like, do you ever, like, when you look at him a little bit more, has anything like crossed your mind where you're like, okay, I don't know that I know he had the good year in it, but maybe this system isn't like best equipped for CJ Stroud.
I mean, I think there's definitely elements of Stroud's game that are underutilized with the way that they operate offensively. I'm not asking, like, it's great if you could scheme guys open. Like, that's great. The NFL guys, their money's made on hitting tight window throws. Like, tight window throws, that's how you win in the NFL.
Right.
Okay. And Stroud hit a lot of them last year and was not afraid to take some of those shots, was not afraid to make some of those throws. And for a variety of reasons, he didn't hit them this year. He was afraid to take those shots this year. And those opportunities also didn't always present themselves either. So scheme guys open is like, that's the best case scenario, is that you scheme someone open. What you're looking for on a play-in, play-out basis is, I got to give my quarterback a chance to make a good throw to get this guy the football. And like, they don't even do that on a consistent basis. And I have to wonder if there's guys around the league that watch the Texans and are like, my God, I could do some special things with that guy. There's got to be guys that think that way. I'm sure every offensive mind thinks that way.
You can. I think
but
you
like,
can.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think there's things that haven't been tapped into yet. And there's strengths that are irregularly accentuated by the way that they operate this offense. And I like, you've got one guy that can catch the ball that's dangerous. And I understand that teams do things to slow him down and take him away and try to make it difficult, but you got to force feed that guy when he's as good as he is, and he can get open like he can, and he has success over the middle when a lot of wideouts don't want to go over the middle. Like, you got to get the ball to Nico Collins more often than you do. And I think there's an element, especially when you think about what Stroud did at Ohio State. That guy's a baller. I'm going to get him the ball. And I feel like there's a lot of just like, nope, this wide receiver has to run this route, and this is where the ball needs to go. Like, that's not really how you succeed. You get the ball to the playmakers. And I feel like there's a lot of run the system, not adapt the system. And this is not a system that needs to be, shoehorn the players into it. This was an O'Brien thing that I bitched about for years. He acted like you had to be a Mensa member to understand his offense at wide receiver. And it's like, actually, guys came off the street after you were gone, and Deshaun was able to find them. So it really wasn't that hard.
I remember someone said that they were watching tape in that first O'Brien session, and he was basically like talking about, well, Randy Moss used to do it this way, Wes Welker used to do it that way, and it's like, okay, that's Cecil Shorts right there. Like, it's like that's not those guys, and the defense doesn't do that. Like, the defense is not like they don't do that. So that's the
defense is Sting and Lassiter, lock them down, let Will eat. Like, they don't try to take away the run and force a team to then pass. Like, they just unleash the hellhounds and they let them go. Like, I don't know why the offense doesn't do that. The throwing the Mixon is the perfect example. Like, Joe Mixon's, you tell me the first 2024 season press conference, Bobby Slowik talked about Joe Mixon. He's like, I don't want to be flippant, but he's a complete back. He can do it all. And then you proceeded to not let him do it all. when you needed wins. They sat here today, Landry, and told me they can't lose to the Jets. They can't lose to the Tennessee Titans.
Will Anderson said that.
They got to finish. They got to finish against the Detroit Lions. A lot of players mentioned, hey, let's get a better seed. Make sure this thing's coming through our house. Like, okay, well, maybe don't save Joe Mixon for this imaginary necessity that you need. That guy's a workhorse. He has some of the most touches in football over the past 5 seasons. Throw him the football. Maybe you beat the Jets. Maybe you beat the Tennessee Titans. Maybe you can finish off the Detroit Lions at home on Sunday Night Football. Nope, got to run my offense and throw up all over myself for a half of football and fail to score points.
On that note.
Hold on, we got super chat we didn't get to.
On that note.
Dom from New Jersey. Can we get rid of Kaimi Fairbairn? I mean, you can, but I mean, are you trusting that many more kickers? Plus, it's financially not responsible to do that. But
he sucks. Well, you can get a kicker very cheap if you like one in the draft, like very cheap.
I'll pull my hair out if they draft a kicker. Like, that's awful.
I'll be fine with it if it's good.
You should never draft a kicker.
Yeah, you should if he's good. Missed more.
No. Hold on. No. We're not. We're going to continue to argue about this.
I was there for both.
We're going to continue to argue for this. One of the best kickers of all time is an undrafted free agent. You know who drafted a kicker that year? The Texans.
Okay, so then let's go ahead and draft a quarterback in the 6th round. Then, like, if we're going to do the extreme.
But no. But you're trying to.
That tells me they should have drafted Justin Tucker in the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah. Well. Okay.
Like that's like what that tells me is that he should have been drafted.
It tells you that kicker evaluations are useless and you're wasting a draft pick to draft.
No, it tells me that there's a bunch of dumbasses who don't draft kickers and don't value it when they should. They're important. Like if there's a good one, now you don't want to take Aguayo or something like that early, but if the
49ers just used a 3rd rounder on a guy and he sucks.
Yeah, he sucks. So the Texans use a 1st rounder on Kenyon Green. Does that mean you don't draft a guard? They don't get drafted very often.
But there's a useful but hold on. I'm not talking about using a 1st round pick on a kicker, Landry. I'm not the Raiders. It's Al Davis you're talking to.
I'm saying if there's a kicker in the 6th or 7th round that you like, that you think can be your kicker of the future, bring him in. That's more valuable than bringing in name the 6th and 7th round picks of the last few years. It's not a great list. So your
chances of success and those guys being a useful player are higher than the kicker. The kicker has one role.
Very important one.
I mean, you've already spent $16 million on this guy, and you have to allocate money somehow.
Well, I don't know. We'll see what happens with Fairbairn. We kind of warned to that before. I said, "Are you nervous about Fairbairn?"
The guy missed the extra point in Indianapolis last year, and they handed him the bag like there was no problem.
He's
he's another reason you need this thing to go through NRG Stadium.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody in the AFC plays in cold weather except for you. So unless the Jaguars and Colts and eventually the Titans fly past you and you got to go to their place, everybody plays outside in cold weather. The Bills, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Chiefs. Nobody's beating the Chiefs and unseating them in the AFC West. So everybody plays outside.
So what's that mean?
So like you've got to have a kicker that can succeed, and if he can't succeed in cold weather, then you've got to find a way to make sure he's not playing in cold weather.
Or just draft a kicker and move on. That's like really cheap.
I'm not talking. But see, never mind.
That's what I'm saying. Like, or just get an.
That's not a realistic 2025 scenario.
The other thing is, if you draft a kicker, chances are it's like late, and you can get like your favorite guy, like the best in the draft. So if you can do that, get it done.
It's a waste of a pick.
Not a waste. Not if he's good.
Yeah, well, when he's bad, it's a waste of a pick.
But if he's good, he's not.
There's more bad ones than good ones.
There's more bad 6th round picks than there are good ones.
Yeah, so you should.
But it's easier. It's easier to have your pick of all the kickers.
If your chances of success are lower, you shouldn't go for the scenario where the chance of success is lower.
I wouldn't say the chance of success is lower. Look at the percentage of kickers drafted on that make rosters versus like the percentage of 6th round picks.
Oh, we're just at make rosters now, huh? I mean, I can give.
There's only one of them, Cody.
Yeah, well, but I.
If they make a roster,
hold on. But
There's
I'm not going to sit here and act like
roster.
Kaimi Fairbairn's unplayable. Like there's still usefulness to his game.
No, I'm
Like,
saying
the guy missed a couple kicks and everybody wants to get rid of him. He's not unplayable.
No.
The 49ers should move on from their kicker and get a new one.
But you're saying
Kaimi's not unplayable.
But you're saying you don't draft a kicker no matter what. I'm saying if there's a badass kicker in the 6th or 7th round and you think he's really, really good, he's going to cost you like $500,000 for 4 years, and it's kind of a walk off from Kaimi Fairbairn, you could make worse picks than that.
Yeah, no, I'm going to go find
That's all
two
I'm saying.
undrafted guys and let them fight to the death in training camp. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Yeah, they can't use that pick on a running back if they draft a kicker. That's a fair assessment. And you know how I am about running backs. I want running backs in every round.
Running back or wide receiver or safety, corner.
The offensive coming to Jesus meeting is one that I would love to be a fly on the wall for.
How do you defend yourself if you're Bobby Slowik? Maybe that's a question for tomorrow.
Are they going to make him defend himself?
I'd fucking hope so. When you have a bad performance at work, you got to justify why it was a bad performance.
Do you?
Well, then if that's the case, then they're screwed.
Yeah. Very possible.
If that's the case, then they're screwed. If that guy doesn't have to go in there and justify why he should still be the offensive coordinator, then they're screwed. And the whole decision-making process is awful.
Did anyone talk to Kaimi today?
He wasn't there.
Yes, he was.
I didn't see him.
Yeah, I saw him.
Well, should have run over there and got him. Aaron talked to John Weeks.
Yeah, I saw that. And I was like, man, leave that poor man alone.
John Weeks coming back. He's a free agent.
I don't know. I don't care. Like, I almost want to get rid of all the nostalgia of the Texans at this point. I don't care. If they bring him back, cool.
Should they use a draft pick on a long snapper?
No.
What if he's good, though?
I mean, if he's good, who cares? I don't even know how to judge long snappers. I don't see any bad long snaps. Like, I see kickers miss field goals. So, like, if you can get someone who doesn't do that, I would take that. I don't think I've seen a bad long snap all season. Have you?
Oh, you don't think some of the operations around the league are long snapper?
I don't know, man. I don't know how to measure it. I'm sure some nerdy ass dude has like a stopwatch or something like that. I don't know. I mean, maybe some of Tommy Townsend's punts were because of bad weak snaps that we didn't notice. I don't know. But like, I don't know how to assess long snaps.
How about that guy ripping off a 28-yarder, like a moment where you needed to pin them deep?
Well, didn't the defense save them though? As usual, per usual.
I don't think so. I think they allowed points.
Oh, that was the final drive. It wasn't the drive before the final drive. Yeah.
No, I'm pretty sure it was the.
Tommy Townsend was very boomer bust this year.
Yeah, Tommy Townsend punts 34 yards to the Houston 45, and then KC put a field goal on the board.
Okay, so that was the drive before the one where they turned it over on downs. Or after they turned it over on downs?
That yes.
Yeah.
No, because the Texans punted. Oh, you're saying that after the 4th and 10 where they hurried and they messed up.
Mm-hmm.
And then KC punted. And then the Texans punted 34 yards, and then KC put 3 on the board.
Kind of wish CJ would have just chunked that one up in the air. Like, that's kind of one where on 4th down, you probably don't want to get sacked. Like, you probably just like chunk it up almost like you're playing 500 in schoolyard. Don't you think?
Yeah, because you could make an argument that even if it's an interception, you steal the yards.
Yeah, maybe just like chunk it up. Don't know.
I mean, George Karlaftis immediately was chasing him because Dalton Schultz did nothing to stop him.
This is true. Dalton Schultz doesn't block.
I mean, it's not Madden where, I think for the quarterback, CJ saw a 280-pound Greek dude about to kill him and was like, oh, shit.
Karlaftis was taken after Kenyon Green, if I'm not mistaken.
He was. There's a lot of good players taken after Kenyon Green.
Yeah.
Don't make me go through it.
Don't, because I don't like getting you started on that.
Don't make me go through it. I mean, the fact that Jordan Davis is unblockable, and that was where the Texans originally picked.
Yeah, they
You
moved
think
back.
You think DeMeco Ryans could have some fun with Jordan Davis?
Kyle Hamilton's pretty good too.
Kyle Hamilton's an all-pro.
They wanted Jameson. I don't care what they say. He's good as long as you don't make him throw.
Trent McDuffie, though they had drafted Derek Stingley, so probably aren't drafting Trent McDuffie, but the Cowboys drafted a tackle, played him at guard. He was fine. Now he plays this. Tyler Smith played tackle or guard for them still.
It's all over, dude.
The big thing was if you wanted an interior lineman, everybody and their mom knew Tyler Linderbaum was the pick.
God, man. And he is, you know what I like about him too? Do not touch Lamar Jackson after the play. Do not touch Lamar Jackson on the sideline. Do not breathe on Lamar Jackson. Tyler Linderbaum is going to be in your grill sooner rather than later. That was as can't miss as it gets. Like Tyler Linderbaum was like you wake up at 11 a.m., you turn on the Iowa game, and that dude is the talk of the broadcast. He is the one center that is the talk of the broadcast. You are seeing Tyler Linderbaum pulling. You are seeing Tyler Linderbaum pancaking fools. He was the talk of everything. And then I'll be damned. The Texans say screw positional value, and the Texans decide they're going to go. Like pretend this is a draft broadcast and pretend like I'm broadcasting right now. All right, with this pick, oh, wow. The Texans say screw positional value. They are going to solidify the interior of their offensive line and not worry about value. And they are going to take someone who they hope will be a 10 or 15-year cornerstone of their offensive line. Who do you think I'm talking about?
Tyler Linderbaum.
Well, it was Kenyon Green.
Yeah.
Oh, and because of that, the next year, or 2 years later, yeah, we are going to draft Juice Scruggs, and we're also going to bring back Justin Britt because Justin Britt is such a leader of this thing and a leader of this organization. So we're going to give Justin Britt a $5 million contract and bring him back and have him quit on the team in the middle. And then we're going to trade up and draft Juice Scruggs to play center because of that, because they didn't just say F it with Linderbaum.
You know how good Linderbaum was? There was a legit conversation
Top 10.
That he should have won the Lombardi Award over Aiden Hutchinson.
Yeah.
Like the Lombardi Award typically, or the Lombardi Awards for interior, or it's a lineman or someone who plays close to the line of scrimmage. And like there was actually like a conversation like, Linderbaum's good enough. Should he win it over Aiden Hutchinson?
No, he was a no doubter. Like it was really kind of funny when you would argue about Linderbaum because it wasn't the positional value losers. They had to say what they had to say about that garbage, stupidest thing in draft talk is positional value. It's idiotic. But it was accepted that he was going to be a badass. Like it wasn't like well, if he gets in the right scheme or, it was like accepted. Okay, this is a badass center. Oh, he's not a tackle, but you got to look at tackles. He's not an edge guy, but this guy probably going to be on multiple Pro Bowl teams, maybe all pro teams, but he's a center. No, he's just a center. So let's let the team that just happens to have good players fall in their lap get Tyler Linderbaum. And that's what happened. And if the Texans had drafted, in fairness, if they drafted a Quentin Nelson quality guy, we wouldn't be bitching about it. But they did not. And I think that's why it sucks so bad, because if you told me that it was going to be, I don't even know, like, would you rather have the better guard or center?
Well, I'd rather have the better center because there's less of them. They're an endangered species. Like you have to have a really good center. And you can only there's only most of the time they're very position specific. Like there's not like okay, if it doesn't work out at center, I'll play this guy somewhere. Like they're usually like the really good ones, they're few and far between. And when you see the opportunity to get a really good one,
yeah,
we'll never know. He'll have to be done with football probably for 10 years before he ever explains it. But like, I have to know Because at that point, that's all Nick Caserio. There's no input from like the future of the franchise. Like, that's all Nick Caserio in that draft. He doesn't give a damn what Lovie Smith says.
Yeah.
Like, that's all Nick Caserio. Okay.
Yeah.
So I would love to know where in the evaluation process did it go wrong that you ended up with Kenyon Green over Tyler Linderbaum?
Well, the thing about it is like, and I saw someone bring up Andre Dillard. Like, if they had drafted Andre Dillard and Andre Dillard would have sucked, this wouldn't be the discussion. You know what I mean? Because Dillard was actually in the dialogue leading up to the draft. Like he was in the dialogue. Like the dialogue with that pick, like the dialogue, because we lived it. The dialogue at pick 3 was, could Aiden Hutchinson fall in your lap? And if not, is it Sauce or Stingley? That was it. That was the discussion at 3. Is Aiden Hutchinson going to fall in your lap? And if not, Sauce Stingley. We weren't really talking about quarterbacks. Then there was that pick, and it was Jordan Davis, Linderbaum, is it too early? Kyle Hamilton, Jamison Williams. Those were the names. And you took Kenyon Green.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the
snowball effect sense.
Here's the other thing, though, Landry. The Dillard situation, like, neither of us are need guys from a draft standpoint. When they drafted Titus Howard in the first round, they needed offensive linemen. Like, they did not have the bodies to appropriately protect the investment. Like, Nick Caserio did whatever the hell he wanted for 2021 and 2022. There was no need. You could do whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
Those were 2 years that you were punting until you got all the Browns picks and you got a coach that you actually wanted to invest in and build a team for. Like, you could do whatever you wanted. So if you took a center at 13, you could have justified it, or a safety or a defensive tackle. You could have justified it.
Yeah.
Like,
it is what it is. It is what it is. It just goes back to the offensive line, and that's really, like, even the Titus pick, okay, fine. The extension probably a little much, but yeah, that was fine. That was fine.
But Titus is the best offensive lineman from that portion of the draft.
Yeah, he was fine. That's good.
Sharping's not even in the league anymore. Dillard's a backup.
God, Max Sharping. Ugh.
Cody Ford ended up not playing tackle and was benched at one point and has made his way back into football as a guard, or back into the starting lineup in Cincinnati as a guard. By the way, little Cincinnati, Indianapolis, Houston connection here. The Colts hired Lou Anarumo as their new defensive coordinator. He was the defensive coordinator for the Bengals last year.
Not bad. Bengals had a bad year, but before that, he was like a big hipster, like dark horse head coaching candidate type guy.
The Bengals 25th in scoring defense, the Colts 24th in scoring defense.
Carlos, just think we drafted Blake Fisher over Roger Rosengarten, who played much better all year long. The Texans really don't know how to draft or develop a lineman. We also need an O-line coach. I like Blake. I like the Blake pick.
Here's the problem, Carlos, is Rosengarten was thought to be the plug and play only right tackle guy. Fisher's top end potential is really good left tackle, really good right tackle. Like, the top end potential for Fisher is much higher.
Yeah,
now, obviously,
I don't hate the Blake pick at all, and I actually think he was fine.
Look, Rosengarten and Blake and like 7 other offensive linemen are all going to get compared for the next few years because Caserio started the tackle run.
Yeah, he took the first. Yeah, he took the first.
He got to pick his guy, and he started the tackle run.
Yep.
And it's not like Rosengarten, like, he had some moments. He plays on a really good team, and he had some real bad moments when he first got in there too.
Yep.
So, I thought, if you're going to go tackle, maybe you want the guy that can play right away. But I sort of understand the top end potential there of what Blake Fisher can bring to the table.
All right, that's a little extended therapy session. We're officially on to the off season. We got a lot of content coming your way, and we got you covered. Andy on the soup again. Stingley wants to stay a Texan forever. You think he takes a slight discount to help build for a few Super Bowl runs? No. He is getting max money. They are not going to settle for much less than around the best corner in the league, and he's got Mulligetta and his dad. He's not taking a penny less.
He's getting at least $25.2 million a year.
Yes.
That's the average annual value that he's going to get because Surtain gets 25 a year. Jalen Ramsey, when he redid his deal, which is a baffling deal, but guess who the agent was? David Mulligetta. He got 25.1. So Derek Stingley is going to get 25.2 at least. At least. One more total and one more for Carlos here. Because I was a Blake Fisher skeptic, but I've come around now. So I gotta defend my guy's honor here. His pressure weight was much lower than Blake, though. Yes, he was more ready to play right away than Fisher. Fisher has better top end potential than him. Like let's debate at the end of next year and see where it goes.
But I feel you. We feel you. I mean, and the other thing is to kind of lean where Carlos is leaning and understand they don't deserve any benefit of the doubt when it comes to evaluating offensive linemen. So
that's fair.
Yeah, small sample size or not, they don't deserve in any area the benefit of the doubt there. So we'll see how it goes. We appreciate everyone for rolling through. We'll be back live tomorrow. Schedule's going to consistent up a little bit. You might be snowed in tomorrow. We got you covered. 4:00 mañana throughout the season. We'll be on the scene covering the offseason for the Texans. Season's over, but the grind never stops. Always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together.
Couple of draft prospects to watch tonight in the big one. Okay. Especially the wide receiver over there at Ohio State.
Buka.
Abuka.
Smith's going to get the attention. Abuka.
Xavier Watts from Notre Dame, the safety as well. So eat good, sleep good, be good. We'll talk Texans again soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Abuka.